In a world that feels increasingly disconnected, meaningful success begins with purpose, trust, and human connection. Every week, we explore the stories behind people building businesses, organization, and lives that matter. We'll ask one simple question: what did you love enough to build? And together, we'll discover the ideas, relationships, and defining moments that shape meaningful success. Because fear gets compliance, and trust creates commitment. The Two River Exchange, where leaders, ideas, and the human connection meet. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to the Two Rivers Exchange. Today, I'm here joined with a fellow Seton Hall graduate, Carina Castagna, and also a Buccini Leadership Institute Advisory Council member. Carina is the founder of Pesto Joe, and she has an extraordinary story about her family, entrepreneurship, and resilience, and about transforming a beloved family recipe into a growing business. So, Carina, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here and to share more about our story.
Absolutely. And before we get into it, I have to say, Karina, you're nice enough to share some your samples, and I brought them to my family vacation where we fed over 30 family members with your amazing
Wow.
pesto. People loved it, and I had more than actually 100 relatives that actually got to share it as well, and we gather. But it was fantastic. We put it over chicken and pasta with sun-dried tomatoes and alongside grilled eggplant, and it was delicious.
Amazing. Now I'm hungry. That sounds awesome. I'm so happy to hear you got all your family together. That's such a special treat and a huge part behind why I started this brand. So that really means a lot. Thanks for sharing.
Well, thank you. Everybody raved about it. And there's quite a few people are big Pesto Joe fans now in the Burns family. So but
Yay,
thank you
love to
for
hear
that.
it.
So take us from where you go back to your family table. Where did this recipe come from, and how did the idea of Pesto Joe begin?
Sure, great question. I have a small piece of show and tell. We'll hope that it doesn't totally blur out. So there's a photo of me and my dad picking basil. Ever since I was a little girl, my dad had this beautiful basil recipe, basil-based pesto recipe that he has from his family in Italy. My grandfather came over from Italy to the States. I unfortunately never got to meet him, but my father had that recipe. And so growing up every summer, our kitchen smelled like cheesy garlic. And I was the key taste tester to make sure that every batch was perfectly made. And it was just a fun memory that I had with my dad. My dad could not cook otherwise, would burn water, but pesto was his specialty. And for that reason, friends and family called him Pesto Joe. And so when my dad passed, it only made sense that I coin that name for him and champion him in preserving something, a piece of him, keeping a piece of him with me, and then getting to bring families together over a shared meal like you just shared.
It's a beautiful story, and could see it totally coming together. I feel like I was right there. So when did you first realize that this could be something larger than a family tradition?
It happened randomly. I feel like sometimes entrepreneurs look for a gap in the market and then they strategize accordingly. For me, my experience was a lot different. My heart shattered, my world shook. My dad unexpectedly passed just 2 weeks after graduating from my bachelor's from Seton Hall. And in that, there was a lot of grief. And I opened the freezer one evening. I'm going to make up that it was a Tuesday. And in the freezer was one of my dad's last batches of pesto. And it hit me like a freight train. I couldn't take it out. I just froze there, stunned. It was one of those brief moments where you realize that's the last thing a loved one did before they left. And so it didn't hit me right then and there that I would want to start a business. It was just an emotional pull that I carried with me. And it wasn't until Seton Hall's Pirate Accelerator program took root in the summer and said if any students have a business idea, they can pitch it, they can get seed funding. And in needing to put my grief literally into something and move forward with it, pesto made sense. And I knew that our family loved it. And I funny enough, didn't really care if anyone else cared about it. I needed to do this for me. But during this whole process of formulating a business plan and wanting to share it is really where the root of it all came from because it's not me trying to sell it. I genuinely just want to share it with the world. It's a piece of my dad that I still have with me, and it's really meaningful and delicious.
That's beautiful. I love that you're actually just sharing. You're not trying to sell it, and that's such a beautiful thing, right? Um, and what an amazing story. It sounds like that the inspiration was there and able to take that moment, and so I'm going to move forward with it. And so it sounds like was it the event that the entrepreneurial event that made you think about that, or you were already kind of toying with the idea of putting it out there?
It was, I guess, a culmination of both. One was I needed to keep a piece of my dad with me. I don't necessarily know if without that program it would have finalized itself. I don't know if it would have came to life in the way that it did, just because it probably would have been something I did on the side for a short amount of time. But that program really gave me a working foundation as to how to bring it to life. I started at farmers markets. I set up a table, just wanted to share a little bit about what I was doing. People cried in front of my eyes. They couldn't believe what was going on. I cried. An interesting healing experience to start with. But since then, we've built a lot of community and in this process solidified that this is what I want to do and this is something I'm going to continue past just a moment of emotion that I needed to create something.
It's amazing. It's just fantastic. Let me ask you a question. What has building Pesto Joe taught you about yourself?
Oh boy. Well, so entrepreneurship, as you know, is self-growth on steroids. You learn so much about yourself, you become hyper aware of everything that you're not good at. And sometimes you have to remind yourself of you do have a lot of skills that you carry with you every day, and you almost take that for granted a lot of the time. It taught me a lot about community in the way that I've built this brand because I was starting this right out of college and I didn't have a lot of financial support in this endeavor just because I didn't have it. I was very scrappy in that, and I'm happy for that start because it taught me a lot about showing up at farmers markets, building the community, having conversations, and I think to the point of you're sharing, not selling, in those genuine conversations means a lot to people, especially because we're used to social media, we're used to being on the go, or somebody is already trying to say something, sell you something, and to really just slow down life, have a meaningful connection, and then have delicious food to bring back to your family is something that our culture misses out a lot on. And I really just want families to be able to break bread together with our pesto and cherish those moments because I come from an Italian American background. Food is the way that we unite as a family. There's a lot of recipes from other loved ones, like grandparents, aunts, and uncles, that I don't have with me anymore. So we create those recipes, we bring it to the table. That's a way of us paying homage to them, but also uniting as one family. And so, me bringing my pesto to the table is a way of bringing my dad back, but also a beautiful mirror for every family to connect over that same meal.
It's beautiful. Is that true though? It's so often that those things that are like those personal moments, when we share something very deeply personal, it creates tremendous value. And your story is a great, powerful example of carrying that love forward through action. So thank you for that.
Yeah,
When we look
absolutely.
at your community at Seton Hall, it sounds like it was a really big part of it. You were there for 4 years, but what role did Seton Hall community play in believing in you and supporting the idea?
Seton Hall is such a special place, you know, as a fellow pirate. Yes, talk about community is people are the key to it all. We talk about this in entrepreneurship, in business, and so often we look to a certain success rate or a certain KPI, and we're like, we got to hit this, but we miss out on all the people in between. And Seton Hall, from the get-go, I had mentors both in a formal setting and an informal setting. I developed friendships that I relied on post graduating. For example, I have a dear friend, Matt, who ended up working at News 12 as a producer. He then gave me a call one day and said, "Hey, I know what you're doing at Pesto Joe. I would love to get you featured." Calls me up, I show up the next week. And those are the powers of connection that really make the difference. And those are the connections that you can never measure and never assume where that's going to bring you, just like our conversation right now. And I'm so happy to be here with you. We have no idea who's going to be able to listen to this and who this is going to inspire next. And that's the cool part about it. But since Seton Hall taught me a lot about quite literally my educational foundation. Quick background, I came into college as a first generation college graduate. I came through the educational opportunity program. So growing up, it was never assumed that I would go to college. We couldn't financially support that decision. And thankfully, through that scholarship, the EOP program, I was able to be one of 60 students in 2017. And every year I had to keep my grades up to make sure that I was able to stay on scholarship. And every day I showed up on campus, I knew what it felt like to feel like this opportunity was out of reach for me. So I wanted to make sure that every day I made the most of it. I was never a business student, formally studying, but I would always go to the business building, Jubilee, and ride the elevator and see all the posters on every wall of what symposium is happening, what guest speaker is going to show up, and I would invite myself. And if by chance someone stopped me at the door, I would just politely ask if I could get in. And I can't say that one time someone turned me away. I got into so many rooms, got to speak to so many people. And I think that's the root of an entrepreneur's heart, but also just someone really dedicated and knowing that what would have once been unattainable was my everyday reality on campus, made it extra sweet for me. And I was happy to do my bachelor's of arts. And then because COVID happened, I started my master's program. So I ended up getting my MPA as well. And I'm so happy to be a pirate. Every day when I have a farmer's market, I put the pirate magnet up on my tent, and you'd be amazed at the amount of pirate fans out there in the world, whether they were alums themselves, family members, or just pirate fan at large. It's a great community.
Just love that. It's really, I can feel the passion coming through. And I love the story going up and down the elevator and in the business school and just seeing what else is going on. But you were aware of things. You were looking at things in a different way. And when we do that, and sometimes being the Bachelor of Arts major or studies, that can actually open your eyes up to things rather than be so myopic. So I love that story as well. Let's talk a little bit about the competition because that can be a little unnerving. I know you had mentors and so on, but
Sure.
tell us a little bit about the competition. And because I think some people watching this may be, even if they're budding entrepreneurs, that's one, or even a CEO or something, say, hey, what was that like going through a competition? What did you have to prep and what was it like? And what did that unlock for you?
For the 6 week summer program, the Pirate Accelerator. So it was less of a competition and more of a program. And I just want to make sure that we are all aware of it, just because there was less of a formal pitch and more of a formulation period. So what was, I guess, tricky for me is I was coming in with literally an idea, and there were already very impressive students coming in that had sales with various endeavors that they were already pursuing. And so it was tricky for me to sit in that same Zoom meeting where someone's talking about hard numbers that they had made the past month and how they wish to scale that 2x. And then here I am saying, well, this is my dad's pesto and I wish to sell it, but I haven't sold anything yet. But if anything, it just makes you get more creative. And I think it's also just a mindset difference of someone can say something and you can take it as, oh, I wish I could do that. I'm not doing that yet. And just kind of be like self-deprecating in that way. But there's another way to view it and say, wow, they were able to do that. How much more can I do when I get my business to that level? So I always just try to do mental gymnastics with myself to reframe everything, not get too stuck in the mud, especially as we talk more about some of the trials and tribulations life has thrown at me, and not to get stuck in the mud. But the program taught me a lot about the lean startup method. It was the whole understanding that every entrepreneur in that program specifically was going to have very limited cash to make this business grow. So how can you validate your MVP to see if it would sell? And creatively on my end, there's a lot of certificates and licensing that you would need to serve food, which makes sense. But it
Right.
costs money and it costs time. And
Yeah.
so in order to just prove my point, I set up a sampling test tent and did a sampling test and just shared the story. And I was able to gift customers a pesto with a suggested donation, and that was my way of selling without collecting a sale. So there was
Yeah.
always a loophole. You just have to be creative enough to look into it and put yourself out there, even if it might feel a little silly. Because down the line, if I didn't do that, I wouldn't be where I am today.
And that's it's so what a journey from going from just an idea, going through the contest to actually getting it out in the field. How do you get that marketing? It's the same concept, right? You're out there with an idea, that passion that comes through, the stick to itiveness. We said scrappy before. I like to say dedicated, but the
Yes.
idea is because we're both from Jersey, we get it. But the
Yes.
idea is, but you didn't stop and you kept going. And I think that's really, we like to call that the human advantage, right? There's a lot of, you could have the great pedigree. You could also have great AI, but it's those things that you're talking about, that thing that gets you up in the morning and say, I'm passionate about this. I'm going to try and find a way, even though
Yeah.
people tell you there's not a way. Or if you knew everything you had to do, you probably wouldn't do it because it becomes overwhelming, right?
Right.
But you stayed the course, and that's just a beautiful thing. But that brings us
Yeah.
right to that next aspect of, we were talking about resilience the other day. You face some really other struggles, and if you don't mind me, maybe you could tell a little bit about the adversity you just faced, like last year with the fire.
Sure. Yeah. So the last 5 years of my life have taught me a lot. I can confidently say my 20s have been nothing what I would expect your 20s to look like. So for a quick timeline, so my dad passed away when I was 22, and then just 3 short years later, we had a house fire. And I so this is almost like 2 years ago now, which is crazy how life just keeps propelling forward and it feels like you miss parts of life. But in those moments, they definitely teach you something. For quick storyline of what that looked like, my mom and I were, I don't have any siblings. So once my dad passed, it was just me and my mom. And we have a great relationship, and I'm so thankful for that. And I grew up in the one family home, small cottage near a lake in northern New Jersey, West Milford, if anyone's familiar. And I had all my family memories there. That was where I grew up. That's where my dad and I had a memory in every room. And we woke up, excuse me. So my mom woke up and started screaming, "There's a fire." And it's like one of those moments out of a movie where you think you're dreaming. And I didn't get up initially because I was upstairs and I almost thought I was in a weird dream. It just didn't feel real. And I come downstairs. There was no visual flame, but you could smell like a very pungent smell that we then came to realize was all the wire in the walls melting with the insulation. And we go outside. It's February. I'm in a robe and slippers, no socks. And the adrenaline made me very warm. I was not aware that I was freezing cold. We run outside, we call the police, they do a full sweep of the house. They come to realize there was a fire underneath our house in the crawl space, and it was traveling along the gas line. So they cleared us far away. They started to like create zones on our block to make sure other houses wouldn't be affected. They called the gas company. 13 fire trucks end up showing up. Um, and all you can do is just stand there and wait and pray. And it was a bizarre experience to just stand there. And what I was waiting to see is just our entire home engulfed with everything that I own and all of the memories that I have of my dad. And thankfully, the whole house didn't get engulfed in flame, but that process took 4 hours to get all the fire out. If anyone's familiar with fires, it's not a pretty sight afterwards either. The firemen are doing their job and they're trying to get the fire out. So it's kind of like a bull in a china shop. Lots of things are lost, broken. The living room floor was actually chainsawed out because the firemen with their tanks couldn't properly get under the house fully to get all of the fire extinguished. So what was a typical Monday morning was very untypical. We walked into the house and there is just a hole in the middle of the house we couldn't cross. We grabbed very few things that we took to the laundromat and then moved in with my boyfriend and his family, all to start what would become a 2 year process of moving 5 times in 15 months, scaling my business despite everything, and carrying the emotional weight of what that all looked like. There was a lot of personal things that were lost. Yes, or no, not everything was lost, but it was still an event that you can't prepare for. And it's also one of those moments in life where everyone wonders, how did you get through it? And the truth
Right.
of the matter is because I had to. And I think sometimes that's just the way that it goes. If I knew it was coming, I wouldn't have had my head right in the same way of it happened and now I need to just move forward with it. And moving forward with it is just kind of a motto that I've kept with me since losing my dad and losing the house. And thankfully, mom and I are both healthy. And of course, doesn't help the loss of what we lost, but it helps you reframe your perspective and appreciation for life, especially knowing how fragile life is. When I lost my dad very unexpectedly, also reframed that. So every time I have a conversation, I get to meet with people, there's a certain deeper appreciation for life that I was not expecting to have so early in life, but has taught me a lot. I'm sure I'll write a book someday. If nothing else, is a cool story, I guess. But pursuing all my dreams despite it has definitely kept me afloat.
It's an amazing story of resilience, and I'm sure there are times you felt stepping away, but
Yeah.
many times people go through it. But what advice would you give somebody who is going through a current problem and they feel like it's permanent and it's pervasive and really personal? What advice would you give them to just keep going? What would you say?
There's probably two things. One is I am thankful enough to be raised in a Christian family, and I think faith is a huge component in keeping you afloat, especially when you feel like you're sinking. And so I would encourage if you don't have faith to visit your local church or find a mentor that's able to help you in that. Or just pray to God. God hears you. Even if you feel like he doesn't, he does have a moment. And that's always been a refreshing portion of it is my spirit has always been well tended to because there's health in the physical and health in the spiritual. And if you're losing both at the same time, you're really hitting rock bottom. So I'd encourage you to reach out in that regard. And also something that I've learned is you really just need a release point because I can say like, oh yeah, just like keep going, you'll get to the top of it. And yeah, you will, but sometimes people need a practical application for something. And if life's really coming down hard on you, you need to find either a creative or a practical way to release your stress. For me, I picked up distance running and just like turning on loud music, getting out there, leaving my desk has been really helpful. And it doesn't have to be anything profound. It could be something like bicycle riding, swimming, going horseback riding. I love horseback riding. But doing something like fun to refresh your spirit outside of everything you have to do is very important. And as adults, we lose our playtime, we lose our fun, our whimsy, if you will. And so
Yeah.
sometimes you really just need to find something that really reignites your soul that's for you. And it's okay to do that, especially as an entrepreneur and a hardworking business person. Sometimes it's hard to do that because you know of everything you have to get done. But if you're not in the right headspace and you're always draining yourself, you're really not going to be able to get everything done well anyway. So find a moment, go out there, do something fun, get a release point for your stress to go away, and then come back and keep going. And that those refreshing moments helped me continue each day. Because if I go for a run and I say my morning devotional, I know that I'm set. Okay, like this day I can get through this day. And then the next day happens, and then you do it again. And so sometimes we look too far into the long term and we don't realize that every day is a new opportunity to refresh ourselves. So that would be my advice.
That was beautiful. Love it. I'm glad we captured that here. And they'll share that with everyone. So let's fast forward. Where can people find Pesto Joe today?
Yes. So today you can find us online. We ship nationwide at pestojoe.com. On our website, we also list some specialty food independent retailers. And so all those locations are listed. Most of them are going to be tri-state area. And then we also have a bunch of farmers markets. I would love to meet you in person. Me and my mom run them all over New Jersey. So we're in Scotch Plains, Bedminster, Summit, Kinnelon, West Milford. And for more information, that's all on our website as well.
Great. If there are any retailers here, are you open to, working with those folks, whether it's a big retail, like big, large retail opportunity?
I would love to have those conversations, definitely. What I've learned in CPG is again, it's a personal business, so I would love to get to meet you, talk more about how we could promote Pesto Joe, really unite the families in your neighborhoods to come together over those special sacred meals. And I'm excited to share that in the next month, we're going to be working with a food scientist and a co-packer. So we're really getting all boosted up for those bigger purchasing orders. So I'd be happy to have those conversations.
Oh, that's excellent. I love that. I love it. Sounds like there's a big dream. What do you have an ultimate dream, what that looks like in the future?
Great question. I have many dreams, but as far as Pesto Joe goes, I want Pesto Joe to be the national brand of pesto. Because when you think of a marinara or you think of a different sauce, there's typically a brand, maybe two that come to mind. One, because maybe that's just what your family bought, so it feels familiar to you. Two is maybe your shopping price point and a certain brand just falls within your price point. But when you think of a pesto, very rarely are we able to say, this brand is my favorite, or even name more than two brands of pesto. People can rarely do. And so I really want to position Pesto Joe as the name brand of pesto. When you think of Pesto Joe, you're thinking of family, you're thinking of quality ingredients, time together. And here we go for the full run of it to make that a reality.
Absolutely. So let me ask you, what is your favorite way to serve pesto Joe, other than the Burns family recipe? I'm just
Yes. I will give you three options. So we have the three flavors right now. So our traditional is light, bright, and cheesy. That goes on pasta for me every time. I'm a big pasta girl. I know people want to diet appropriately, but pasta is good for your soul. So I
perfect.
just love our traditional on a pasta. Our garlic lovers is our next flavor. I love that on my sandwiches and wraps. I use it kind of like a condiment. You don't always have to use it as a sauce. That's a great application as well. And then our Fra Diavolo is our spicy. I really love that with scallops. I will do that with like scallops and rice. I will also do that with shrimp and pasta. I love pasta. Or the Fra Diavolo goes delicious on red meats, like a steak or a chicken. So really just depends on the flavor that I have, or it also depends on the mood that I'm in.
Love that. Now I'm hungry too.
Good.
Thank you for sharing that. Love it. Can we get recipes online? Because those would be great to have too. We'd love
Yes,
to
you
hear them.
can. I will be posting more, but there is a recipes tab, definitely. You can also follow us on Instagram or TikTok, pesto_Joe. We like to do Manja Mondays, so we'll post some fun ideas for you to try some delicious meals with the pesto.
Love that. Well, Karina, your story is so much more than just pesto, right? It's about family, it's about love, it's about loss, it's resilience, finding that courage to transform, which is so powerful. And thank you for sharing something so deeply personal, but how you turned something and shared it with the world was just a beautiful story. And thank you for feeding the Burns family. We really appreciate
Oh,
that.
you're
And
so
you know,
welcome.
everybody, you know, I could personally attest how great Pesto Joe is, and certainly with the family table. So again,
Yeah.
your website, maybe just one more time for the audience so they remember where it is.
PestoJoe.com.
Okay. Well, we'll tell everybody about it. And thank you for joining us. And we look forward to seeing more Pesto Joe in the future.
Thank you so much, Owen. I appreciate it.
My pleasure.